Hello there, and thank you very much for clicking on to watch this video. I really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bond, Dr. James Bond. I'm a health and fitness expert, and I work with people who want to improve their quality of life, particularly those who want to lose weight. What makes my service different is that I'm the only personal fitness instructor in the north of England who's a qualified medical doctor, and therefore I can take on cases that other fitness instructors cannot or will not dare. Now, in the last few days, I've just been given this copy of the Daily Mail, and on the front cover it says, NHS Chief, Parents are raising children terribly. It's written by Ben Spencer, the medical correspondent, and it's regarding comments made by the NHS Chief Executive Simon Stevens. Now, I'm an obesity expert, I'm a former doctor, and I've read this article, and I have to say that the NHS Chief Executive is living in cloud cuckoo land. Like many people who work in the National Health Service, he is living in his ivory towers. He is far removed from reality. Okay, this is how I explain this. Mr. Stevens is obviously one of those people who has his £750,000 a year salary. He's probably got a really nice house, a really nice car, has super flash clothes, goes on 8 weeks holiday a year, and basically has got more money than he can imagine. Okay, he hasn't grasped the harsh reality. Obesity is a disease of poverty. It is not a disease of the rich, and there's 7 reasons for this which he is totally unaware of. Firstly, food that is high in fat and carbohydrate and low in nutritional value is mass-produced and cheap. Food that is high in nutritional value and low in fat and carbohydrate is hand-produced and expensive. The poor cannot afford it. Thirdly, people who are cash poor tend to be time poor. I noticed there's a comment made in an article where a lot of parents say they haven't got time to cook from fresh. It's very, very true. Okay, very often, this man in his ivory towers doesn't understand that very often people who are cash poor and time poor can only afford to have 1 meal a day, sometimes if they're lucky 2. Now what happens is, in such circumstances, if they can only have 1 meal a day, the body's metabolism slows down, and it thinks that because nutrition isn't coming regularly, it will store everything it can as fat, basically, but it doesn't know where the next meal is coming from. He doesn't understand that. The next thing is, very often such people are so cash poor and time poor, they wolf down food really, really quickly. Now it takes the brain 20 minutes to register that you've eaten something. A lot of people haven't got the time to eat slowly. So what happens is they wolf down as much as they can over that period of 20 minutes. What happens if that's high fat, high carbohydrate, low nutritional value food? It's a nightmare for obesity. And lastly, with the greatest of respect in the world, people who are cash poor and time poor may not be the most educated in the world. Mr. Stevens, I say this to you as a former doctor. Most people who work in the National Health Service in the upper echelons of power, i.e. those on the board of directors, the chief executives and many consultants, live in their ivory towers and are wholly out of touch with reality. Let me give you an example. I did some groundbreaking research into student debt levels. Okay, in 1999 I predicted then that a student who had no parental funding by 2010 would graduate from university with a debt of £35,000 to £40,000. Professor Wheatman, who was then the dean of the medical school at the University of Sheffield in December 1998, I should say, okay, on a taped interview he said, "It probably hasn't changed that much since I was a student." Okay, I even had a very prominent member of the Royal College of Pathologists on interview saying, when I asked him about the same issue, he said, "Oh, I think they'll end up at £4,000 or £5,000 in debt." It never ceased to amaze me how much these people in the upper echelons of power in the National Health Service or even in the civil service live in their ivory towers. Mr. Stevens needs to get into touch with reality. Okay, and needs to come out of his ivory towers and see what's going on in the real world. This is what I suggest that needs to be done. You need to have a concerted approach to tackle obesity. Okay, we need to make sure that exercise facilities are available and they're available at an affordable price. We also need to make sure there's much more education for the general public in terms of what's good for them and what's bad for them. We also need to make sure that food that is of high nutritional value and low in fat and low in carbohydrate, although we do need some carbohydrate in our diet, is basically affordable. Okay. Now, just for the sake of the general public, I have created a guide called 100 or so ways to lose weight without going to the gym. Click above, I should say. You can get it there for free of charge. Okay. My name's Bond, James Bond, leaving you shaken but not stirred. Bye bye.